In March 2011, I took a late-night drive with 3 high school friends. We drove from Modesto, where we all lived, to Knights Ferry, about 27 miles east. Knights Ferry is a tiny little village in the foothills, where the Central Valley meets the Sierra Nevadas. We arrived around 11 p.m. and found the place eerily desolate. The purpose of the outing was just for the drive itself, so we weren't surprised, but we did get sort of creeped out. It's cliché, but the place was a total ghost town. There aren't even streetlights, so there are just dark, boarded-up buildings along the main street, but a full moon was shining overhead and illuminated everything. We parked at the end of the main street, near an abandoned mill from the 19th century. The driver, F, and I decided to get out there and get a better view of the open sky, to take in the quiet night. Our other 2 friends, J and K, stayed in the car. They were freaked out by the quiet, dark, isolated setting. The road is a bit elevated above the mill and the adjacent recreation area along the Stanislaus River. F and I walked to the edge of the road. When we reached the waist-high wooden guardrail, we saw 2 figures standing below, probably 30 or 40 feet away from the mill. These figures were featureless and solid gray. It was as if they were wearing those skin-tight colored bodysuits that they sell at costume stores. They had no faces, no identifiable marks, appeared to have no clothes on, no genitalia or breasts, no hair, nothing. Just a head, torso, arms, and legs, and about the size of an average human adult. And I can't attribute their lack of features to darkness, because the moon was brightly shining down on them. They were completely exposed in the clearing, with no shadows obscuring them. We could see them plain as day, and they almost seemed like they were slightly glowing. I don't know if that was just an illusion from their light color reflecting moonlight, or if my eyes were playing tricks on me, but just as we laid eyes on them, they turned toward us, like they had been in conversation, but then noticed our presence, the same as we had noticed them. Even though they had no eyes or face, we could tell they were looking at us. We looked back at them for what was probably less than 4 seconds, before F and I looked at each other in horror, and both instinctively turned and ran back to the car. We jumped in and peeled out of there, scaring J and K in the process. From their position in the car, they were unable to see the figures. F and I told them what we had seen, and had identical descriptions. We both saw the same physical characteristics, movements, and strange glow. We debated back and forth for a long time, trying to rationalize what they were, but could never feel totally convinced by any of the conclusions. I later fell into an internet rabbit hole about paranormal experiences, and found posts from other people that had seen UFOs over Knights Ferry over the years. So now I lovingly refer to the experience as my first alien encounter. I don't know if that's what we saw, and there's no way to ever know, but I'm okay with that. And I damn sure won't be driving to Knights Ferry after dark alone. This happened to my ex-wife and I. It was during the summer when my family decided that we should all take a trip to Mexico to visit family. I was about to join the Marine Corps, so my mother wanted me to go see my family just in case something bad were to happen. At the time, I was with my pregnant girlfriend, who would later become my wife, and then ex-wife. Since she was pregnant, I didn't want to leave her alone, so I bought her a ticket so she could come with as well. Her being Caucasian with blonde hair and hazel eyes made everyone around my grandma's house curious, and a lot of our extended family came by to see the beautiful American girl. After greeting everyone, we all started to talk about what had been going on since we had left. My girlfriend was sitting next to me, having me translate parts of the conversation. One of my aunts who knew I was into the paranormal brought up the subject of La Llorona, aka the Wailing Woman. My mom quickly told my aunt to shut up, since she knew that it would get me both interested and scared regarding it, but I was able to push my aunt to keep going. I mean, I was going to be a Marine after all, and I couldn't let a silly myth scare me. She proceeded to tell us about how whenever she would sleep over at my grandma's house, at which we were currently at, if she stayed up late enough, she would be able to hear her wails, the wails of La Llorona. My mom rolled her eyes and jokingly pushed my aunt. The subject died from there, since one of my other aunts decided to talk about her son and whatnot. Seeing at how serious everyone had gotten for a brief moment, my girlfriend nudged me and asked what we were talking about. I told her the myth of the wailing woman, about how she drowned her kids in a river and was destined to walk along all the rivers of Mexico, looking for her dead children. She of course laughed, not really buying any of my paranormal stories. That night, my parents decided that my girlfriend and I should stay at our old house where I had grown up, since we were both adults and needed our own space. The house was currently being worked on, so the bedrooms had no doors or working lights. The only doors that the house had were the ones that led outside. They were fairly new, but they were your standard metal flimsy doors, and a kick or punch could make it rattle throughout the house. Inside, we had to use a candle and a flashlight. I remember we even used a bedsheet as a temporary door, to give our room a little bit more privacy, even though it was only us two in the house. As the night went on, my girlfriend and I stayed up talking, and eventually we both fell asleep. I don't know at what time exactly, but something woke me up. I realized that my girlfriend had stolen the covers, so I slowly tried to steal some back. As I was debating on closing the window that was located right above our heads, I heard a long wail. It was a long, distorted wail. I could hear the old raspiness in her voice, like as if she had been yelling for such a long time that her throat was getting ready to give out. But what confused me was that her wail sounded like it was being played through an old gramophone. I don't know if it was the scratchiness of her voice or what, but it sounded like an old creepy record playing, over and over. She was wailing her trademark, or "Oh, my children." That wail was what made her infamous, not just in the paranormal community, but with most people living in the rural parts of Mexico. My girlfriend started to stir and woke up. I don't remember if I woke her up on purpose, but either way it was a dick move, since she would also get to hear the wails. I was both excited and scared shitless at the same time. A cold chill traveling down my spine just reinforced my fear. The wails grew louder, making it seem like as if she was slowly heading towards us. On a side note, there's a myth that if you hear the wails close, she's actually far away. But if you hear them far, she might be somewhere near you. My girlfriend asked me with a half smile, "What the hell is that?" Thinking I had asked my aunts to scare us. I just motioned for her to be quiet and listen. Hearing the tone of my voice, she knew that something was wrong. Another loud wail passed by, echoing inside the house. My girlfriend started shaking, terrified of what could be outside. I had my left arm under her head, and I could feel tears run down from her face to my arm. Each time the wail came, she would shake a little, and at the same time I would hold her close. The wails eventually came to a peak, where it sounded like she was outside our window. Doing the only brave thing I knew, I pulled the covers over us, and we tried to remain as still as we could. The wails eventually faded out, and just as we thought that she had gone, we heard two wild dogs viciously fighting and slamming against our outside door. My girlfriend had grown attached to this stray dog that used to walk around my grandma's farm, so while we were staying there, he would always sleep outside the door to wait for us and greet us whenever we would come out. The dogs, or at least what we thought were dogs, fought for a good minute, slamming against the door, snarling and barking at one another. Then, as sudden as the fight started, it stopped. We attempted to stay up for a while longer to see if we heard anything else, but eventually, sleep took over us. The following morning we talked about what had happened. We walked outside to meet our stray dog, but he was gone. All that was left was stirred up dirt from the fight. We never got to see that dog the rest of the trip. He would usually come around, but we just told ourselves that maybe he found a place with better owners. This all happened around 2008, and still until this day, whenever I pick up my daughter, I ask my ex about what happened in Mexico, but she doesn't like talking about it. I haven't been to Mexico ever since. I don't want to think the worst. I've had a few weird things happen to me in my place. I thought for a while I maybe had a squatter on my property, but I have pretty much ruled that out. I'm looking for reasonable explanations to these occurrences, whatever that means to you, because I don't know what to think. I moved into my one-bedroom apartment in the country, outside of Roseburg, Oregon, in March of 2016. This place isn't old. There's no weird experiences around that I know of. About 8 months ago, I woke up to a loud slap on the side of my house. It's metal siding, and it was very loud. I'm on the second story, and it sounded on the first floor below my bedroom. It was weird, but I shrugged it off. A few months later, nothing weird in between. I'm driving up my driveway, half a mile behind a gate. Only mine and my landlord's, a 72-year-old man, and something slapped the outside of my car. It was dark, so I assumed an animal ran into me. Same night, about 10 minutes later, I'm in my garage, and I see a flash of bright light in the woods, about 50 feet away, like a flashlight. At this point, I'm thinking there's a kid in the woods playing pranks or something. I was intrigued and annoyed, but not scared. Later that night, I heard a loud sound in the kitchen, like a plastic bowl dropping to the floor. It scared my dog bad. He jumped and ran over to me. I looked around, but nothing had fallen. Again, I thought, weird, but tried to let it go. A few weeks later, I found a single wet footprint in my garage. My landlord said he hasn't been down here, and it's only my dog and I. At this point, I'm definitely sure I have a squatter. I put a trail cam, and it's been like 2 months, and nothing else weird happened, and I never got anything on cam. This brings me to 2 nights ago. I'm over at my landlord's house, and a buddy is coming over to spend the night. He said he knocked and my dog started barking. He said after a minute he heard my voice, clearly through the door, tell my dog to calm down by name. "Calm down, River," and River immediately quit barking. He said he started getting mad because he thought I was messing with him, because I wouldn't let him in or answer him. He texted me, and I told him I was up at the landlord's. He actually drove off because he clearly heard me. I met him at the bottom of the driveway and we came back, and nothing else weird happened that night. And now tonight, just about 30 minutes ago, I get hit in the leg by an empty water bottle on my desk. I'm in my chair about 2 feet away from the bottle, and it's up about maybe 1 foot higher than my leg. It's on the back of the desk. I didn't see it fly, but it hit me in the leg at a force of being thrown. Not really hard, but it went about 2 feet across the desk. I have no windows open, no fans going. I try to play these things off, but the more they set in, the more they unsettle me. I don't know. All of these things could have natural explanations, but it's also enough to creep me out. Anyone have any thoughts for me? When I was young, I lived in quite a small town in Queensland. The whole town was surrounded by bush in every direction for hundreds of kilometers, and we had so much room to play. This particular story is about the first time we got drunk. In the winter, the water level would drop significantly, enough for us to camp in the riverbed. My best mate's parents owned a pub at the time, so we were in charge of getting the drinks for a little camping trip we'd planned, so we could finally pop our drunk cherry. The place we had in mind was out near an old indigenous settlement, where a few creepy things have happened to us over time. So we made our way down into the riverbank, which was low on the side we came in, and really high on the other side. You couldn't see on the other side, though, through all of the trees on the top, and it was kind of unnerving knowing someone could be up there watching you, and you wouldn't know. There are about 7 of us kids in the camp, and our parents have no idea where we are or what we are doing. We lied and said we were staying at a friend's place. We set up our camp and built a little shelter for all of us to sleep under. We were all set up and started drinking as the sun was setting. Soon it's dark and we are in full swing, mixing drinks, singing songs, and throwing stuff in the water, and generally making a whole heap of noise. As we are starting to wind down, One of my friends says he saw something move at the top of the riverbank, on the steep side. We all say that he's full of shit and should calm down, but he is adamant there is someone up there. So we all start calling out, "Come out, you pussy," and other such things, being brave well beyond our years. To our surprise, a bearded man wearing straggly clothes and no shoes comes out of the tree line. He stands on the edge of the bank and just stares at us. We all go silent, waiting for him to do something. But for about 5 minutes, he just stands there, and then he retreats back into the tree line. We all talk amongst ourselves and get a bit nervous, but we soon forget it. About an hour later, the guy is back, but he isn't on the bank anymore. He's coming out of the shadows from the other side of the bank and entering our camp. He comes over and stands next to the fire, just joins our group of 12-year-old kids and stands there. We are all officially a bit scared and don't know what to do, so we just sit there in silence. Eventually, one of my friends gets up the courage to speak to him. "G'day, mate. How are you? Are you okay?" The guy just stares at my friend, and then starts staring at each of us in turn for a little bit, giving each of us a little time. My friend tries again. "Hey, are you okay? What's your name?" The man snaps his head back at my friend and stares at him wide-eyed for at least 2 minutes before answering. Without blinking, he says in a raspy whisper,
"That's none of your fucking business."
And he hisses like a cat. Then this guy just jumps back screaming and staring at the fire like it had just appeared and runs off up the steep bank in record time. It was impossible to get up this thing, so we all stand there speechless. We decide that it's best if we just stoke the fire, because it's about a 39-kilometer walk in the pitch black back to town, and we weren't confident on that. So we stoked the fire. We sat up for as long as we could, keeping watch, not really talking. We all eventually dozed off one by one. When we woke up in the morning, everything was gone. All of our alcohol, all of our bags, all of our shoes, and all of our blankets. Everything. The creepy thing was that none of us woke up as someone robbed us blind, and there was not a single footprint. We were sleeping in damp sand, so there should have been footprints everywhere, but there were none. It looked like we hadn't even been there. Needless to say, we bailed and ran most of the way back to town. Our feet were all cut up and messy by the time we got back. We never told our parents about our camping trip, and I doubt we ever will. I will start with this. I'm not a believer nor a denier in the supernatural and such. However, this story is as true as I can remember. When I was younger, I would go visit my grandma down in Mexico. To be more specific, in Durango. She was the only reason we went there. It was a nice little house. The front faced a hill. It was more like a long stretch mountain that spread into a forest kind of area. I have stories of that too, but I digress. The front door led to the main room, and connected to it was another smaller room on the back left. In that room were 2 doors. One was to the main room, and the other was on the right wall that led to the kitchen. The kitchen wasn't very big. It stretched out from the door. The width was only about 7 to 8 feet, and at the end of the kitchen was a door that led outside. Behind the house, the backyard was fenced and led at a slanted angle down to a river, and there was tall grass everywhere. This whole stretch was 200 feet, probably more. This is all important, or at least relevant to the story ahead. My grandma was the sweetest, food-making hug kind of grandma, and she loved telling me stories about the weird different things she had seen, and stories passed down by my ancestors. My mom's side of the family is Native American. I was 9 when she told me the story of a demon that would follow the river behind the house, and that every few years it would go the length of this river. I, of course, being the kid that I was, took this as a crazy off story to entertain me. This is what she told me. The demon doesn't seek anyone out, or go out of its way to kill someone, say overlooking the river from a distance. But on occasion, it would come to houses and stay in an empty room, only wishing to not be disturbed. Once she said this, her demeanor changed completely. She put her hands on my shoulders and met my eyes, and said this in Spanish. "You have one chance and one only. If you ever walk into an empty room in the dark, and it's abnormally black in an area, or you see the silhouette of black and red, simply leave the room and close the door. Do not open the door until the next morning. If you disturb the demon or return, it will without hesitation kill you or drag you to the river." As she said this, her voice was filled with a sense of dread and importance. 3 years later, I go back to visit my grandma, still happy, still making me food. I was there for a month as it was summer, and my mom needed to take care of her, as we knew she was dying and didn't have but a year or two at most. Around week 2 was when it happened. It was a normal day, a beautiful one, actually. Lots of green this time of year. Then the night came. My grandma and my mom were sleeping in the main room. My brother, cousin, and I were in the other room, all three sleeping on each other, as the couch was just big enough. I woke up for no reason. It was a lot darker than I'm used to since there were no real streetlights, just the moon. There was no real reason to panic, I was just out of my element. As my eyes focused, I began to make out the door. This wasn't a normal door like the one that led to the main room. This was an old wooden plank door with holes and cracks. I thought I heard some small movement in the kitchen. It wasn't out of the ordinary for a street cat or other animal to sneak in and move some stuff around looking for food. Curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to look through. I was as quiet as I could possibly be, not because of the usual eerie or dread feeling. It was because that any noise was much louder, as there were no cars or city noises, just silence. I was on all fours looking through a small hole. I looked around, and nothing. It just seemed kind of empty. As I turned away, I heard it. A soft, almost too calm kind of breathing. I looked again, but this time I decided to look for a longer period of time, to let my eyes adjust. As I scanned the room, it seemed normal, but then my eyes darted back to the left corner, almost like a rabbit seeing a coyote. My stomach sank hard. I saw something huddled in the corner. My mind told me to scream for help, but my instincts told me to not move a muscle. That is, until I heard a noise, almost like wood breaking. And as I realized what it was in the corner, the terror truly set in. I saw it move, and in an instant I placed my back to the door. The cracking continued. When it stopped, a red, soft glow began to come through the cracks in the door. The breathing got louder, but kept the same pace. When I heard the breathing, my eyes darted to my brother and cousin, who to my surprise were locked motionless, eyes wide open. We heard some wood utensils that were hanging move, and the glow started moving too. As this happened, we heard the door to the outside make a small creak, and the glow disappeared. We heard it move slowly through the tall grass, down to the river. Some minutes later, we heard dogs barking in the distance, almost as if being mauled. I fell asleep against the door. The next morning, my grandma woke us up to make breakfast, and she saw my face was pale. When I explained what happened, she said I did a good job, and to never forget the mercy this thing may or may not have shown to us that night. Hey guys and ladies, thanks for watching. If you want me to tell your story, or read a creepypasta, email me at the address in the description. Come follow me on Twitter and Instagram at CoreyRhino. Be good to animals, even people. See ya! Now in the skit, I had to go to the chiropractor. And so here's how it turned out.
Mr. Interval?
Yeah.
The doctor will see you now. Go down that hall, first door on the left. He'll be right in.
Okay. What do you mean, doctor? It's a fucking chiropractor.
Hello, Mr. Interval. I'm Dr. Bruce Banner.
Hold on a second. You're Bruce Banner? I thought you were a scientist.
Well, I wear several different hats.
You wear different hats?
Yeah, it's an expression. I do all kinds of things.
Oh.
So why don't you tell me what's bothering you?
I'm so sorry to bother you, Doctor, but your ex-wife is on the phone and she says it's urgent.
Son of a bitch. Okay, sorry about this. I'll be right back.
Well, that's not good. Oh, shit.
May!
Actually, you know what, sir? My back feels okay. My back feels okay now.
Lay down!
Okay, please take it easy.
Hulk smash!
Okay.
Scout, snema, Barksmas, Hrish. It's okay. I'm just pretending, masses.